Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for listening and interacting with me on social media. That does truly make it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X all over social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We have a great show lined up for you today. As usual, a mix of celebrities, impressive citizens, athletes, and tons of fun. Today's guests are quite impressive. We have Armand Perry, former NPC and IFBB bodybuilding champion. He's an entrepreneur, a real estate investor, and very much an artist. And if that's not enough, a book author. He is also the founder of Hunk-O-Mania Entertainment, a live choreographed male review show for women. And we're going to be chatting male strippers, what the job entails, and how family life fits in. On sports and hip hop culture segment, we're going to be chatting all things b-ball with hip hop and NYC. Corey Homicide Williams, he's a legend. He went from infamous NYC streetballer to voice of Australian basketball. Also joining us in this hip hop segment is pioneer and b-ball legend himself, Al Cash. He's co-founder of the EBC basketball tournament and legendary sports announcer. And of course, returning guest, John Askew, COO and part owner of Primetime Basketball. We're coming up to the 40th anniversary of the EBC basketball tournament that rooted itself at the Rucker. And we're going to hear how the EBC helped shape and change the game forevermore. And finally, on the scandal segment, with legal analyst and trial attorney Imran Ansari of ABK Law, we're going to be chatting about R.Kelly. After decades of sexual abuse allegations, he has been held accountable for the very first time. He was found guilty on all counts with a New York Brooklyn jury of 7 men and 5 women returning the verdict on Monday. He was found guilty on 1 count of racketeering and 8 counts of violating the Mann Act, which is an interstate anti-sex trafficking law. He stood accused of sexual exploitation of a child, bribery, and kidnapping, among other very disturbing crimes. And Imran is here to chat about what the future holds for yet another celebrity that has fallen from grace. Now, before I bring on Armand Perry, former male stripper turned entrepreneur, as a mom and wife and someone who prides herself on maintaining a positive attitude about my health, I must say that this includes my emotional health as well as my mental health, and let's not forget my physical health and needs. And I will say that in my 13 years of being in a relationship and married, sometimes the only thing that keeps you together is great sex, but it can also be the reason you fall apart without it. So here is some sexy advice that will pleasantly surprise you. Beyond the obvious, sexual intercourse has many healthy benefits, okay? It can help you feel happier, be healthier, and live a longer life. It can also protect against disease and possibly even prevent cancer. For one, sex slashes stress. A study published in the journal Biological Perspective asked participants to take part in a stressful activity, such as giving a speech or taking a complicated math quiz. The participants who had vaginal intercourse before a stressful task had lower levels of stress and lower blood pressures when compared to people who had no sex or those who masturbated and those who had sexual contact without intercourse. Secondly, sex is good for your ticker. Intercourse certainly gets your heart beating, but that's not where the heart health benefits end. A study found that sex can actually decrease a man's risk for a fatal heart attack. Researchers found that men who had sex 2 or more times each week were less likely to die from a heart attack than men who had sex less often. Now, sex also relieves pain. Sex can make you feel good in more than one way. There's the obvious physical benefit, and then the less obvious pain relief. During arousal and orgasm, the hypothalamus in the brain releases the feel good hormone oxytocin. And researchers at Rutgers University, right here in New Jersey, found that this surge of oxytocin may actually help women feel less pain, especially during menstruation. To further that, a study published in the Bulletin of Experimental Biology and Medicine found that oxytocin in men cuts pain perception by half. So there you have it, my sexy people. Yep, we talk about it all on the show. Stay tuned for the awesome Armand Perry, male turned stripper and entrepreneur with 3.6 million followers. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City, Tempest, Aikido Pharma, Caldwell Soames, BJ Cucina in Midtown and Soho, Revere Securities, Helen Yarmack International, and Romulus Entertainment. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Now, this is an interesting topic. Male strippers. Okay, stripping isn't as taboo as it used to be, and the signs of that are evident. Two Magic Mike movies have shined a light on the industry. Cardi B's Instagram videos of her life as a stripper boosted her meteoric rise to fame, and pole dancing classes are seemingly just as common as yoga or Zumba nowadays. Before, stripping was a hush hush, don't talk about it kind of thing, but that movie shined a light on the industry as a whole. You might even know someone who strips. There's a chance you've seen them in your local softball league, or maybe even they sold you a car or cooked you a meal. Now, Magic Mike brought the world of male stripping to the big screen, but the job requires a lot more hard work than memorizing a few minutes of sexy choreography. For starters, they have to hustle to get hours. Most male strippers freelance, hopping from club to club to make coin. Befriending clients is key to raking in those tips, so flexing their personality can be just as important as flexing their biceps. And while having people fawn over them makes them probably feel pretty damn hot, sleeping with clients is probably completely off the table. Now, if you're curious to know what it takes to become a professional dancing hunk, look no further, because up next we have Armand Perry. Now, Armand Perry is former NPC and IFBB bodybuilding champion. He's an entrepreneur, real estate investor, and very much an artist. And if that was not enough, a book author. He is also the founder of Hunk-O-Mania Entertainment, a live choreographed male revue show for women, which operates in one of the largest nightclubs in New York City. Now, Armand founded his first Hunk-O-Mania nightclub show in 1998 in New York City, and the show has now expanded to over 18, and I say major cities. They are everywhere. Today, he's here to chat male strippers, how to achieve success, and what it's like having 3.6 million followers. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Well, it's a pleasure being on your show. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Now,
an amazing introduction. Thank you for the introduction.
Without a doubt. Now, Armand, look, apparently there are dads, car dealers, truck drivers. There's a lot of strippers, so to speak, that we don't even know are strippers. And you received a great deal of publicity following the success of your Hunk-O-Mania show, probably one of the largest and most successful male revue shows for women in the world. What inspired you to create Hunk-O-Mania?
It started as a way of, making extra money. I come from very humble beginnings. My parents immigrated to the United States when I was 12 years old, and they worked very hard to support us. And I wanted to make some extra money. So while I was looking for a part-time job, I met someone who was also going to my university. I was about 20 or 21 years old, and I noticed that he was also into fitness and bodybuilding, and we would see each other in the cafeteria, and I saw he was eating the same type of food as me, and one day we just started talking, and he was very inspired by the way I looked, I guess, because he saw that I was very lean. I had a lot of veins, and at the time I was very focused on my bodybuilding career. So he was very impressed with my conditioning and my, I guess, my physique. So he started asking me questions about, what I eat, how I train. We started training together. Next thing you know, I'm asking him, hey, how is it that you're 21 and you drive brand new exotic car? And it was like, well, I have a part-time job. And, you know, um, being the shy guy that I was at the time, I was like, I don't know if I can do it. But he invited me to check him out at one of the clubs, one of the venues that he was performing at. And just hanging out watching him, I made like $100. Well, not the birth of Hunk-O-Mania. Before Hunk-O-Mania, I was a dancer, so I worked my way up from being a
Stripper and a male dancer.
dancer. So that was a way of me making extra money. I don't come from money. My parents didn't have any money. I wanted to also, wear nice clothes, drive a nice car, and I was like, well, I see this guy. He has designer clothes every day, and
Okay, so let's fast forward. So let's fast forward. So you're stripping, okay? And guys, for those of you just piping in, we're talking to Armand Perry. He is quite the impressive individual. But I have to say, you are a family guy. You are now married. You have 4 kids. Now this is, in
I've
your
always been focused, even from the beginning. See, that's the difference. Whatever business you decide to get into, you have to treat it as a business. And even though it's an entertainment business, a lot of people get sidetracked.
So then now you're stripping, and then from all your hard work stripping, from your incredible physique, from all of the followers and all of the fans that you basically throughout the years have cultivated, so to speak, you then launch Hunk-O-Mania, which is now an epic show.
In 1998, I decided to create my own company. I'm just getting tired of traveling 3 hours away and having, because at the time I was working for different promoters, and it's a hit and miss. Some promoters work hard, some promoters don't work hard. So I would travel 3 hours away for 5 girls, or worse yet, I would travel and the show would get canceled on the way to Connecticut.
Now, let me ask you this, Armand. At this point in your life, do you have a girlfriend, or are you completely single?
I might have had a girlfriend. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, I might have had someone.
But nothing significant, meaning your focus was your career.
Yeah, my focus was my career. My focus at the time was my bodybuilding career and my school,
Yeah.
But I've always been a very competitive person. I've always strive to be the best I can be in every aspect of my life, whether it be bodybuilding or even in school. I was a 4.0 student in school, so I've always applied myself into everything that I decided to do.
So how do you go from now stripping to having your own company to creating this amazing show, Hunk-O-Mania? For those of you that have never heard of Hunk-O-Mania, please check it out, hunkomania.com. You can also check Armand Perry with 1R.com. And on Instagram, he has 3.6 million followers at Life Perryway. Now, how do you take all of this? Because you are an enterprise, you have a PR agency, you're an artist, you paint. What don't you do? So let's talk about this, the stigma of male strippers. Okay, for the people listening out there, male strippers, would you say, are average, everyday people, just like you and the neighbor next door? Or is the stigma of all the drama that goes on behind the scenes kind of ripping down that kind of the cliche of what really goes on?
Male strippers just like anyone else. I mean, we have male strippers who are a mess in their personal life. We're male strippers who are very focused, just like anything else. Whether you choose to be a male stripper or a an investment banker, there are male strippers that actually work really hard, and they diet, they exercise, they're focused, they're educated. We have male strippers who are actually working on Wall Street. And the beauty about male stripping and the beauty about the male stripping business is that because it's a nighttime, it's mostly a nighttime industry, you're able to be an actor. You're able to be a commercial or a fashion model. A lot of my guys have other aspirations, aside from being male strippers.
What kind of tips do male strippers make on a given
Really
night?
depends. It's just like you're asking an investment banker, how much money do you make? I mean, it really depends. It's really related to the effort, the amount of effort you put, and personality. You were speaking about personality. It's not enough to be a great looking guy. Of course, that's going to get you in the door, but it's ultimately your mind and your personality.
Got it. So like everything else.
Just like anything else. But you're going to be able to capture their hearts by having a great personality, by really making them feel great and understanding people's skills, understanding that women, they all have, they have ups and downs, and they all have good days and bad days. And really, in a sense, being, a psychologist, or understanding psychology will definitely make you the most money.
There you go. I'm assuming all of this is in your book because you are a published book author now. And more importantly, the advice that you're giving is, advice that makes sense and resonates in any kind of business. Where, like you said, if you're driven, you'll see results. If you treat this like an art and only like an art, you will be a starving artist. If you treat it like a business, you'll start to see revenues. And I like that idea. Now, what inspired the PR agency? I mean, obviously you have a PR agency now and you've taken it to the next level where everything is kind of hovering on basically you're the brand. So tell me about this PR agency.
So during COVID, as you can imagine, all my clubs closed. So I had 6 months, and, I started posting more. During that time, people were asking me about the book. And as a result of me wanting to promote myself, I hired a PR firm that made a lot of promises and really didn't deliver on those promises. So as they were doing things or trying to do things to me, I actually learned the process of how to do what I wanted them to do for me. Because they couldn't deliver, I became so frustrated, and because the timing was right, I had a little bit more extra, free time during COVID, and the next thing you know, I'm doing things for myself. I decided to fire the PR firm, and as I was doing things for myself, my friends were like, "Hey, how did you get featured in the magazine cover of?" FHM or GQ, and they're like, "Well, can you do that for me?" And I said, "Absolutely," because
pragency.com was born, and that is quite an impressive story.
newhpragency.com.
newhpragency.com, and that's great. And you're very entrepreneurial, so the stakes were high. You got lemons, you made lemonade, so to speak, and that's what a lot of people did during COVID. That's what I did. My show was born in the heart of COVID because, again, as an actor, I wasn't being requested, and we have a similar story in terms of the success and the drive. Well, we have about a minute left, but I just wanted to thank you for coming on, because you are not just impressive. You are so impressive. You are multi-talented. You are a family guy. Do you ever get back up on the stage, or that's in the past?
Sometimes I miss it, though.
Oh my God. Well, you should pole dance for your wife then. All right, guys. There you go. Guys, listen. You're listening to Armand Peri right here on A Moment of Zen. Please do check out his website, armandperry.com, or you could check him out on Instagram at Life Perryway, and of course, check out his PR agency, which is the newagepragency.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City, Tempest, Aikido Pharma, Caldwell Soames, BJ Cucina in Midtown and Soho, Revere Securities, Helen Yarmack International, and Romulus Entertainment. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at ZenSams. That's Zen with an X.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Now let's chat some b-ball. Well, for some, basketball is like a religion. Their love for the game is on a deeper level. Basketball is an escape from the realities of the day-to-day grind, and whether playing or watching, people immerse themselves in the action while others have a deep understanding and appreciation for the history of the game. Walk into Harlem Rucker Park, located on 155th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard in New York City, right across from the streets where the Polo Grounds used to stand. On an ordinary afternoon, you might not understand, well, at least not right away, at least. But if you get lucky to catch b-ball players in action, it would sink in. Basketball culture in New York City is everything. Every summer, all attention goes there and everybody comes out to the Rucker. You get a feeling and a vibe like nowhere else. And everybody knows this. All 5 boroughs know summertime to be in Harlem at the Rucker. And over time, the pros transitioned from playing regularly to making special appearances. But street ballers continue to establish themselves at that park. Harlem playground director Holcomb Rucker founded the park's inaugural tournament, the Rucker League, in the 1950s, and that quickly transformed into a summer pro AM showcase where NBA players faced off against New York street legends like Earl Manigault and Pee Wee Kirkland. NYC's basketball fans didn't see the likes of Wilt Chamberlain and Julius Erving for the first time at Madison Square Garden. Oh no, they witnessed them in action at the Rucker. Now, here to help me walk down memory lane as we're coming up to the 40th anniversary of the EBC basketball tournament that rooted itself at the Rucker way back in 1987. We're going to be chatting all things basketball, hip-hop, and NYC culture. Joining me today is Corey Homicide Williams. He went from infamous NYC street baller to the voice of Australian basketball. He played professional basketball for 14 years around the globe and now transitioned to the life after the game within the game. And then we also have superstar joining us, John Askew, CEO and part owner of Primetime Basketball League with former NBA legend and 3-time world champion from the LA Lakers. He's also a former professional athlete. How fitting is it that we also have joining us pioneer b-ball legend himself, Al Cash. Actually, Al Avant Cash, EBC contributor and announcer. He's CEO of One Man 7 Stories and co-founder of the Entertainers Basketball Classic. He's the creator of streetball announcing with 40 years of experience in the game. He was the first streetballer announcer to host a show on NBA TV, and he's also one of Harlem's first hip-hop DJs. He went by the name of DJ Al B. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Now let's start with you, John. Since you called me to tell me about the 40th anniversary of the EBC basketball tournament approaching, and we're talking about the basketball, league that became famous at Rucker Park, known for the NBA pros that played in that tournament, players such as Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson. You could go down and name the impressive people, and not just NBA players, but you also have street ball legends that played there. Tell me a little bit about why you picked up the phone and said, Zen, you have to do this interview.
Well, good morning again, Xenia, and thanks for having us on. I'm a partner with One Entertainers 155 Basketball League, which is actually formerly the EBC that was played all of these years at Rucker Park and started at another park. And the reason why I called you was because I knew this anniversary was coming up over the 40 years of the impact that this event took place at Rucker Park was so significant to the future and the past legacy in sports and entertainment where that was concerned. And because I've done an interview with you before, Xenia, I wanted to give you an opportunity to cover this first. And I knew that guys would have an opportunity to be able to have their voices heard and to be able to get their flowers right now for all of their hard work and what they've accomplished.
Without a doubt. And thank you for introducing me to the awesome Corey and Al. Now, Al, I'm going to move this to you. In your opinion, why did the EBC basketball tournament become so famous?
Honestly, I think it's because of hip hop. The tournament originally started back in 1982. We was challenged by another rap group by the name of the Crash Crew. And at the time, me and Greg Marius, we was working at a radio station, WHBI, with Mr. Magic. And Mr. Magic overheard the conversation, and he announced that Crash Crew challenged Disco 4. It's going to be at Mount Morris Park. And that Saturday, he announced it. That following Sunday, when we had the first game, we had thousands and thousands of people there. And from that point, you know, it was just regular hip hop groups and a club by the name of Disco Fever. You had the Cold Crush Brothers, Treacherous 3, Fearless 4, just a lot of 80s hip hop groups. And we actually took a year off and we moved up to 139th Street. And that's when the tournament actually started, far as real street ballers and hustlers. Hustlers were the sponsors of the street ball teams. And from that point, it was just amazing. You know, you got the hip hop artists, you got the street hustlers, and you got some of the best street ball players in the city participating on 139th Street and Lenox Avenue. And from that point, you know, the crowd there, like I said, we always attracted a big crowd. And from that point there, we was there a couple of years, and the neighborhood started complaining because people was double parking, triple parking. So eventually, the police department and parks department told us that we had to move because the crowd was too big for the park. So long story short, the police department gave us an option. They said you can take the tournament to Randall's Island, or you can take it up to Rucker Park, which at the time you did have Pro Rucker going on, but they was only there on the weekends. So we decided to stay in Harlem, took the tournament up to Rucker Park, and basically the rest is history from that point. I mean, we had record companies, we had clothing companies, all type of celebrities came through. And I think one of the biggest things was when the former president came up to the game. I mean, we always attracted celebrities. We always attracted celebrities.
That's so impressive that it went viral so quick, so fast. And we have to remember, this was at a time where social media didn't really exist. So this was all true word of mouth. People just kind of, you know, when something goes viral in the most organic way. And I think that's where the fame really started. Now, Corey, welcome to the show. How did street ball help you and your career? And is basketball culture in Australia much different from America?
Well, thanks for having me, right? I know we don't have a lot of time because of a lot of us talking on here, but I just posted yesterday on my social media a picture with me at 155th Street and 8th Avenue train station. And just reflecting on the journey, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that park. I graduated, I have 2 degrees. My coach did not help me. Geographically, I'm lucky that I'm from New York and that park existed. I used to dream of putting that uniform on, that EBC uniform.
You just gave me chills.
Church. That is church. I need to explain, that's religion. This saved my life. I just came from the Olympics, commentating 3-on-3 basketball, which is now half-court street ball. The first inaugural year of it. And if it wasn't because of that park, I wouldn't be there in Tokyo, right? What I'm doing now, I just finished year 4 as a Stephen A. Smith / Jalen Rose / Mark Jackson of the NBL, which is the hottest league in the world outside the NBA. That's what I do over there for a living. And it would not have started, that would not have happened if it wasn't for Rucker Park.
So Rucker Park really, I mean, changed your life, essentially.
No, not essentially. It changed my life.
Wow.
Those battles against those NBA players that would come to the park, I would never have had an opportunity to get that exposure because where else was I going to play against them? You understand what I'm saying? Where else would I have played against them? When you're a no-name guy, no NBA team is checking for you because you don't have no name, no big name. I didn't go to Duke. I didn't go to North Carolina. But it was that park that attracted those big name players. You know, and I never forget that day when Ron Artest, Defensive Player of the Year, the true warrior, not Meta World Peace, the true warrior. They brought him to guard me. And after that game, I got MVP of Rucker Park that season. Changed my life.
That's epic. Epic.
I'm just trying to tell you the magnitude of this park. And it's a debt that I could never repay. What that park has done for me. I could never repay that debt.
I just want to say one thing. I mean, people repeat Rucker Park, but it's the entertainest basketball classic for the last 40 years. You understand what I'm saying? And that's kind of one of the things that people don't recognize. But I'm glad I'm on this platform here to share that with everybody. Rucker Park is the park, but the tournament was the Entertainers Basketball Classic. EBC was the name also of the tournament. It was abbreviation. So I just think that's so important because people don't understand. It's not the Pro-Am. It's EBC.
It's EBC, and that tied it all together. It's kind of like when that started, now there was a purpose and a focus, and that was the vehicle within Rucker Park that basically drove all of you to that next level. So that's pretty incredible. Now, Al, you've interviewed many NBA players such as Kobe Bryant and some of the greats, and you and your partner Duke Tango basically changed the game. How did you change the game?
Well, okay, being honest, right? I discovered Duke at another tournament in Harlem. So I brought him over to us over 139th Street, and Duke was kind of one of those guys that was really off the hook. So I was babysitting Duke, basically, just to keep him around. So by me babysitting him, we became best friends, and I was his hype man. And what I did was that helped change the game was I brought hip hop, I brought my DJ skills and my MC skills to the court. Far as interacting with the crowd, doing rhymes, and Duke is just a natural. He was just gifted with the ability to announce. So with us giving out nicknames and people loving them, we were the attractions for many years, especially when Greg Marius brought us those cordless mics and we was able to interact with the players, get on the court with them and commentate. It's like we put a battery in the back. We had so many different players that come to us even today, 39, 38 years later, saying that, if it wasn't because of you guys, I wouldn't be able to, have the opportunities that I had in the past. And shout out to all the other announcers that came at us. But just for the record, we didn't create street ball announcing. We created the style that everybody's been doing for the last 40 years.
And that's that style that resonates in everybody's ears when they go to the Rucker, because I see that same tone, that same body language, that the momentum that you brought originally, they are, they're imitating, but ever duplicating, so to speak. Well, listen, we have about 40 seconds left. I just wanted to thank all of you for coming on. Corey Homicide Williams, definitely have to check these guys out. They're all over Instagram. Al Cash is there. John Askew, thank you so much for coming on the show, guys. It was such a pleasure having you. And big shout out to the Rucker and the EBC tournament, because that's where it all began.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City, Tempest, Aikido Pharma, Caldwell Soames, BJ Cucina in Midtown and Soho, Revere Securities, Helen Yarmack International, and Romulus Entertainment. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media @ZenSams. That's Zen with an X.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Now, up in just a few, we have the Scandals segment with Imran Ansari of Idala Bertuna Commons, otherwise known as ABK Law, right here in New York City. We're going to be chatting about R. Kelly's sentencing, what the future holds for yet another celebrity that has fallen from grace. A New York jury on Monday found him guilty on all charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. Now, R. Kelly, whose real name is Robert Sylvester Kelly, is facing decades in prison. He targeted, groomed, and exploited young women and men for his own sexual gratification and ran a sex cult by trafficking people across state lines. He also allegedly bribed a government worker to help him marry Aliyah, late R&B singer, when she was just 15 years old. And in this particular case, R. Kelly followed the Predator playbook. He believed the music, the fame, and the celebrity meant he could do whatever he wanted. To those of you out there running out to his defense, he was never a genius. He'll always and always will remain a criminal. And this isn't the first time Kelly has been in trouble with the law. Back in 2002, he was indicted on 21 counts. Yep, 21 counts of child pornography. Remember that? He could have faced up to 15 years in prison, but left a 5-week trial a free man. He was cleared on all counts. Allegations of sex trafficking and sleeping with underage individuals have continued to follow him throughout his career. But it's all over for him now. Karma has a very clever way of paying it back, people. And here to help me break it all down is legal contributor Imran Ansari of ABK Law. He pipes in, and he's a trial attorney, and his specialty is criminal law with several years at the district attorney's office. He has successfully prosecuted hundreds of serious cases. And Imran is also an on-air host and legal analyst on Law and Crime Network, as well as a frequent on-air legal analyst for Court TV. Welcome back to the Scandal segment, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Zen. Good to be here, as always.
What is going on? I mean, the jury in Brooklyn federal court heard from 50 witnesses throughout this trial, and only 5 of whom testified for the defense. What is going on? I mean, right now we have a whole brouhaha of people saying he's still innocent, while it's clear as day that he's always been a criminal.
Right, Sen, after a trial with a multitude of witnesses, as you just mentioned, for the prosecution, some witnesses for the defense, the jury rendered their verdict with resounding loudness. And that was guilty, guilty, guilty. R. Kelly found guilty on all counts. And those included counts of racketeering, charges that are normally used for organized crime, and also violations of the Mann Act, which would be essentially a sex trafficking statute, and trafficking people across state lines for the purpose of sexual misconduct. The jury spoke. Guilty, guilty, guilty. R. Kelly now faces up to life in prison. He's going to be sentenced in 2022, but until then, he's going to be behind bars. Yes, the judge has remanded R. Kelly pending that sentencing, where he faces up to life in prison. And you got to think here, R. Kelly, maybe that's done for him in terms of the legal trouble. That's it. He's convicted. But no, he's facing more charges, more court cases in Minnesota and Illinois, all relating to sexual misconduct, and he's going to be facing those charges too. And I have a feeling, Zen, that even though he's been convicted here in federal court in New York, those jurisdictions, those prosecutors are going to be looking to extract their pound of flesh from R. Kelly, and they're going to bring him over there and prosecute him there. It's really
You raised a really good point. I want to touch on that, because what does the verdict mean for R. Kelly in other trials? But let's go back in the trial in the Northern District of Illinois, which he has co-defendants. That's probably going to be up next. And I'd like to raise the question of whether a Minnesota prosecutor needs to take Kelly to trial on this one count if he has already been sentenced to basically what you just said, like life in prison in New York. Meaning, is it a good use of resources to try someone already facing a significant sentence?
Well, Zed, that's a very good question, and a good question to ask when you're talking about resources and government resources and taxpayer dollars. But the way our justice system is set up is that if there are victims in another jurisdiction, and those victims are victims of a defendant, those jurisdictions are going to still want to prosecute that individual. Why? Because those victims want justice too. So even though he's convicted here in New York in federal court, even though he's facing life in prison as is going to be sentenced next year, those prosecutors are not going to want to forget about those victims in their jurisdictions, and they're going to want to bring him to justice in those jurisdictions also, because they are separate charges for separate incidents. And we've seen this happen. It's happened with Harvey Weinstein. It's happened with other individuals where there are charges in other areas. Those prosecutors will bring those charges and seek to take them to trial, even though they're convicted in another jurisdiction.
Yes, you make a great point. Of course, survivors need a voice, and whether it's, in this state or other states, their voice must be heard. So while he's, sentenced to, practically life in prison in this state, definitely, the short-term answer is yes, a good use of resources to try someone already facing a significant sentence, because it is being put to good use, because it's giving the Me Too movement yet another boost, and the survivors within the Me Too movement a voice and a platform. So thank you for saying that. Not every legal expert would swing that way. They would say, well, you're right, but in this case, you brought up such a valid point, and that's why I love having you on, because you always go to the heart of it all. Now, let's talk about this sex cult that this guy ran, and how did he get away with this for all these years? Like, okay, so I gave the perfect example earlier on. He walked a free man, and basically we let a criminal go back on the streets to basically prey on all these young men and women. What do you say about the legal systems? Basically, they dropped the ball. This could have been prevented.
Well, Zen, he was facing those child pornography charges years ago. He was acquitted. The jury spoke in that case. Justice played out in a different way in that case. But as you said, earlier on, Zen, karma has a weird way of working itself out. And here he is. He had this whole apparatus. The jury credited the prosecution's theory of the case under a racketeering charge, that he had this whole apparatus of enablers who allowed him to conduct himself, essentially abusing these minors. And you heard a lot of salacious allegations through these witnesses, Zen. We're talking about physical abuse against these women and men, forced sexual acts, people coming for interviews thinking that they're there for a job, but being presented with condoms from one of his assistants. And the allegations was that there were all these people around R. Kelly that knew what he was doing and helped him do what he was doing, which was abuse of a sexual nature of minors. And of course, you heard about Aaliyah. I mean, we all knew Aaliyah, who tragically passed away in that 2001 airplane crash, was married to R. Kelly.
Yes,
but
for years, the public and the news media seemed to be more amused than horrified by allegations against him of inappropriate relationships with minors, starting with, to your point, his illegal marriage to this, R&B phenomenon, Aaliyah, back in 1994. She was 15 years old, and this was okay. And this is what I'm talking about. When you have these powerful celebrities, these artists that have so much control over not just one, but two, but millions of people, it's really hard to take them down. And this is the power of celebrity and fame that we have to deal with, especially survivors of, within the Me Too movement. They felt silenced for all these years. It took so much for them to come forward, and that's why I praise everybody who took the stand. But yes, to your point, like this, it was time. Karmically, it's over and done with for him. But what do you think this is going to say how do you think this speaks to our youth? What do you think? What kind of message do you think we're giving to our youth when we praise these celebrities, whether they're rappers, whether they're musicians, actors, athletes, and this is, of course, the result that you get? It's not something that you can mentor off of. These are people that are criminals.
Yes, and well, I think you see now the notion of accountability playing itself out in the justice system, no matter who you are. And of course, listen, I have to let our listeners know that I represent people in places of power who have been accused of certain things. And some of those accusations are credible. Some of those accusations may not be credible. And I'm talking about in not necessarily my clients, but people of power and people coming out and making accusations. But when there are accusations that have been found credible, and here we have these accusations against R. Kelly, that a jury has come out and said guilty, 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 you have to think about now, what is the accountability for others? And I think we're going to see going forward that people in the music industry, in the entertainment industry, in politics, no matter what they do, they will be held accountable. You're talking about the youth. Well, all the streaming services of music, which I would imagine a lot of young people are using to get their music, as all of us are now, they're pushing to take R. Kelly's music off the streaming services. So essentially, R. Kelly, who had all this power, used his power to do horrible things that he's accused of and he's been convicted of. Now his legacy, his artistic legacy, seems like it will be canceled. And that seems to be the way things are going now, that there's accountability no matter who you are.
Absolutely. And you have to remember that a widespread public condemnation didn't come until a widely watched docuseries called Survivin' R. Kelly helped make this case a signifier in the Me Too era and gave voice to accusers who wondered if their stories were, previously ignored because they were either minorities or Black women or whatnot. And within months of the series being shown on TV back in 2019, Kelly was under arrest. So what does that tell you? Although he got off the hook, so to speak, where is the power? Hollywood or in the police? But at the end of the day, when you have this much accountability and you are a celebrity, it should come with consequence if this is, you reap what you sow, so to speak. So he should be canceled across the board. They should take all of his music off, and he shouldn't be something that our youth looks up to or listens to music to, when at the end of the day, you're listening to his songs and you know that music was either produced or recorded while there was sex slavery going on in his back office.
Yes, and R. Kelly thought he could fly, right? I believe I could fly. He thought he could fly away from his legal problems. That certainly is not the case.
He crashed and burned.
You could say that. And he's still, he's still facing those charges in those other jurisdictions. So the world of hurt for R. Kelly legally is not over. We're going to see probably those jurisdictions, as I said, coming after him and seeking to prosecute him. And then there's going to be the reverberations throughout the music industry. Like you said, does this music retain its viability, or does it go to the wayside? And I think over time, because of the things that he has been convicted of, accused of, and the people speaking out, I think that music will go silent over time.
I couldn't agree more. Well, listen, Imran, these conversations are awesome. I love having you on because we could just go on forever, but we're always on a clock. And between the two of us talking, we always seem to run out of time. So thank you for coming on. The Scandal segment is one of our most popular segments, and that's because of you, because of all you're contributing here. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Zen. Always great to be on.
Absolutely. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. That was Imran Ansari of ABK Law. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Ocean Resort Casino in Atlantic City, Tempest, Aikido Pharma, Caldwell Soames, BJ Cucina in Midtown and Soho, Revere Securities, Helen Yarmack International, and Romulus Entertainment. Tune in every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, or download the iHeart app. Text the word collaborations to 917-575-2321. Follow Zen on social media at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X.
We're almost at the end of our date, my friends, but here are some closing thoughts on a trending topic. Some parents aren't ready for young children to get this vaccine. Now, the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine is safe for children 5 to 11. That is the headliner we are reading. That's what they are announcing. But parents are very skeptical, even if the FDA authorizes its use. There are about 28 million children of ages 5 to 11 in the United States. Far more than the 17 million of ages 12 to 15 who became eligible for Pfizer's vaccine back in May. But it remains to be seen how much of the younger group will be vaccinated. Uptake among older children has lagged, and polling indicates reservation among a significant number of parents, including myself. Only about 40% of children ages 12 to 15 have been fully vaccinated so far. That's compared with 66% of adults, according to federal data polling. Now, this polling indicates that parental openness to vaccination decreases with a child's age. About 20% of parents of 12 to 17-year-olds said they definitely did not plan to get their child vaccinated. Now, the definitely not group grew to about 25% in parents of children aged 5 to 11 and 30% among parents of under 5-year-olds. Now, among the side effects scientists have been studying is myocarditis, which is an inflammation of the heart. And in rare cases, the vaccine has led to myocarditis in young people. And that is where I draw the line. Vaccinating Alexa, my daughter, who is barely 6 and her brain is still developing, is off the table. I feel it's rushed and too soon. Vaccinating myself is one thing, and I did get this vaccine totally reluctantly, by the way, but don't go after the babies. Children have a much lower risk of COVID-19 than adults, even when exposed to the Delta variant. And with lack of trials and evidence, this feels rushed. This is big pharma ringing it in, and they are skewing numbers in the media to scare the population, in my opinion. The fear mongering must stop. Well, that's a wrap, my friends. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. or go to 710WOR.iHeart.com/A Moment of Zen to watch fully uploaded episodes, because we are a vodcast. In latent terms, that is a TV podcast, so you can see me as of Monday morning. Remember to tune back in next Saturday night at 9 p.m. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It has been an absolute pleasure.